All right, everyone, welcome back to our second quarantine edition.
How's it going, guys?
Um, it's good to have you on the phone again, Faridun. How's
Likewise.
life?
Life is good. Life is good. How about you?
Good, thanks, man. So I told you I had a chat with someone earlier, and they were asking me to do one episode on how you would use this quarantine time to get started with a business.
Yep.
And I thought it makes perfect sense to just to have a chat on that and cover some of the things you can do and how you can get something going during this time. But before I do, I want to give a shout out to my friend David, who got this awesome Life's Golden Nugget T-shirt for me and for you, and
Thank you very much,
appreciate it. It
David.
means a lot, and I'm excited to be wearing it. So thank you, man. I appreciate it, David. So on starting a business you and I were talking about this just before, and there's a lot of great things that you can take advantage of while we're in this quarantine. To me, if you want to start a business, the most important thing is to think about how you're going to sell your product or your services, right? Like ultimately, yes, of course, you need to have a good product, you need to have a great service, but the most important thing is that you sell it, because if you have the best product or the best service in the world but you can't sell it, there's no point, there's no business there
Of
anymore.
course. Yep.
And the quarantine right now offers you the best opportunity, because you hear this from people a lot. They're like, I'm not ready to start, I want to be able to really get everything in line and start with, get a perfect start and make sure when I start. Yeah, and I get all that. I'm not saying you should go ahead and start a business when you're dealing with 50 things and you're at your worst. But really, starting a business is never, in my opinion, never necessary to start with like the perfect ramp, and you have to have the perfect plan with the perfect product and the perfect partners and everything else. A lot of it is experimental. You have to figure it out as you go along. And the quarantine gives you a ton of time to look into things, to research things, to get started. And for example, when it comes to sales, which in my opinion is the most important part of any business, to start looking at, who can you sell to, what's your market, what's your price, what are the competitors out there doing, what kind of margins you're going to have, what can you do. So you can do a ton of work in terms of just preparing yourself. And then who's to say you can't just reach out, do some market gauge testing, and call people and try and see if you can find any interest in your product. And you don't have to lie. You can just say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, call up a bunch of places, get a sense of what the interests are. So that's always, that to me is always a big step in getting any business started. It doesn't matter what it is gauge your market and get a sense of what you can do, and if you can sell, and if you can, for how much, and who you're going to sell it to, and how you're going to enter the market, and who your competitors are. So you can do a ton of work on that, and we'll come back to these things, but I want to list a few of the things that you could be doing.
Sounds
The
good.
second thing is, there's some administration with any business you want to start. You got to print off forms, register the company, get a tax, register for tax. Maybe you need to find a lawyer, maybe you need to find an accountant, maybe you need to find various resources. Maybe you need to set up a website, maybe you need to get some Instagram social media handles. Those are all things you can do right now. And even if you don't think you're ready to fully engage with the business, why not get started with the website? Why not go and register the business, give it a name? Why not get some Instagram handles for it, and Facebook, or whatever else you want to you want to set up for it? So there's a lot you can do in that sense. And then there's obviously developing skills. Like if your business requires a certain set of skills that you don't have, and you're not going to bring in through partners or other resources, now is the perfect time to develop those skills. And this is a point you were making, Faridun, that this is a real good opportunity for everybody to just better themselves in some way, and learn and develop some skills.
Yep.
So one of the great things, the great sort of I guess mysteries about business is always, how do you start? People ask that all the time, like, how do you get started? And to me, the magic is knowing there is no magic. Just start. Anything you do that's in line with you running a business is a start. Like there is no magical big step you have to take, and boom, this movie scene takes place and everything falls into place and you've got this $10 million business. No, just take a step. If you go online and research how much your competitors would be selling for, that's you taking a step towards your business. If you've got a website that you registered and you're starting to work on it, that's you taking a step forward. I have a good friend of mine who runs this very successful wealth management company, and in talking to him, he always says, I'm always working, I'm always working. And if you look at his life, that doesn't mean he's 100% of the time sitting behind a desk. But what he does mean is that all his efforts are in line with his business, and that if he goes out and he's at an event or is at a dinner, he's still socializing and he's building his network. If he's he wants to watch TV or something, he's taking in as much information as he can so he knows about what the world is like and what's happening, or be familiar, or get content that he can make conversation with. But the point is, like, his mind is always geared towards using whatever he can in developing his business, and that's something you can get into the habit of. So it's okay if you're not necessarily building your product or selling, but you can still do a lot. But I always go back and say, one of the conversations we've had before, one of the episodes we've done, is make sure you're doing effective work. So don't get too caught up doing busy work, like, getting insanely detailed with your logo, like you're about to launch the next Starbucks right now and 1 billion people are going to see your logo. Like, it's, get a good logo, be happy with it, but don't spend, I just spent the past 6 weeks, spent 80 hours a week working on my logo. That's over the top. Don't do that. Like, make sure you have some effective work that you're doing, that you're moving the actual there's actual progress with the business. Does that make sense? Do you
Yeah,
follow what I'm saying,
100%.
Pedro?
Yeah, of course.
So in my opinion, if you want to get started, please try and understand there is no perfect start. That magical moment you have in your mind where everything's just going to line up and you're going to be able to look at your life and say, this is it. This is this moment. Now it's time for me to start a business because I've already got $10 million saved up. Everyone in my family is just doing fantastic. The economy is just booming. Everybody wants my product. It's very unlikely for something like that to happen. You're probably going to start your business at a time where you're dealing with some challenges one way or another. You might have some family issues, you might have some financial issues, the economy might not be the greatest. There's always going to be something. So don't wait and think, I have to have this perfect start, and unless I have a perfect start, my business isn't going to go anywhere. It's not like that. Most businesses go through a lot of evolution. They never start off with this like perfect track and then just continue on it till they hit this massive, home run.
Yeah.
Usually there's a lot of twists and turns, and there's a lot of surprises and evolution. And there's a reason why we always talk about being adaptive is sort of the most important quality, not just in life, but in business also. You have to be adaptive. There's always going to be challenges. So don't be obsessive about having the perfect start, but just focus on getting started. And given the time that you have right now, you can do so much in terms of understanding your market, understanding your competitors, understanding the price points, understanding the administration of it, getting some presence online, websites, Instagram, social media, so on and so forth, talking to potentially people who you want to have partner up with you or join or put some capital into your business. These are all things you can do. And there's a ton more. Like if anyone out there is looking at actually doing a business or starting and they have any questions on what they can do, please, we'd love to talk to you guys. So reach out, send us an email. We can talk about specifics. But there's also one other thing, Feridun, that you brought up, which I really enjoyed, and I think you're right, is right now the quarantine and the whole situation we're dealing with and the sort of challenging environment that it's created, it actually helps you gauge whether or not you have a good business. Because if your business can survive in this environment or even thrive or be really be really useful to people, then it's probably going to do even better when things do go back to normal. So
Absolutely.
if you want to start a business and you feel like I really want to do it, but the quarantine is really getting in my way, then think about whether or not this is telling you something. And maybe not, maybe it is an excellent business and you're going to do great with it, but the timing isn't just right. It's very possible. But if you can figure out a way to make the business work right now and use this time right now, and the whole craziness of it all, to sort of gauge whether or not your business is going to be able to withstand the difficulties of the current circumstances, then you're probably going to have an even better time when things go back to normal, and you're going to be able to experience it, even probably a boost past that point. And obviously, most businesses right now rely greatly on some kind of a digital medium. Like even if you want to start, say pretty traditional business like a restaurant or something, your presence online and having a way for people to find you is going to be critical. Of course, it's going to be good to have a good location and obviously great menu and great chefs. And I don't know too much about that business, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But even though you need a lot of things that aren't necessarily things you can do right now, there's a lot you can do in terms of, for instance, finding a good location, looking into different alternatives, finding different people and resources you may need to bring in, getting good material for marketing and understanding the competitors, neighborhoods, other businesses and restaurants you're going to be competing with. So there's so much you can do in that sense. And then I go back to my first point, which is sales. And I'm going to spend a couple more minutes on sales because ultimately, like I said, it is the most important thing in your business. And one thing that I've learned with sales is that, in my opinion, as long as there's honesty in your sales, even if the product is not perfect, it's not necessarily going to hold you back. Like if you go to market and say, listen guys, I'm coming out with this product, this is my version 1, I want you to test this, I want you to give me some feedback, I'm going to charge you less money for it, my next version is going to have this and that. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be understanding of that, and they're going to want to get on board with you. We experienced that when we were launching the system, and I've used this in examples before, like our system now has literally thousands of reports and screens and functionalities, literally thousands. But when we started, we didn't even think about it that in that way. We had probably 10 or 12 reports that we built out and basic functionality, and to us that was big. And when we took it to market, we never went out there and tried to lie like we're this 10-year-old established business. We went out there and with all honesty said, listen guys, this is what we're trying to build. Here's the core, here's what we're trying to do, this is where we're taking it to, this is the direction. And even though what we were selling was a very hard sell, I mean, convincing $1 billion wealth management company to put their assets on your platform and trust your reporting is not an easy ask. But there were a few firms that gave us a shot, and they were beta testing our system, and they allowed us to build and develop the system as we went along. So I don't think you need to have the perfect product or the perfect service. As long as you are honest with your clients and as long as you're willing to take the rejections that are inevitable, make the cold calls. You're going to call 100 people, then 99 of them are going to say no, and then probably a few of them are going to say fuck off even. But that's okay, because who cares? You're not going to remember those, but you're just going to focus on the one that says, yeah, sure, let me see what you have. And that's all you really need. Once you do get an opportunity like that and you've got your foot in the door, guess what? You're in, you started, you have a business. It's real now. So my biggest thing is, don't wait for that magical moment where everything is perfect so you can get started. Just get started. Take some small steps, move forward, do something. And By the time you've done your homework on what you're going to sell it for, how much you're going to sell it for, who you're going to sell it to, what your competitors are doing, by the time you've done the admin work, you've got a website set up, guess what? You are where you need to be to start anyways. You're ready. Like, that is the definition of being ready. So don't think that this magical moment is just going to happen on its own. It's going to happen because you're going to take these small steps. It's kind of a catch-22, right? So you're going to have to start taking these very small steps. Do your research, look into it, develop your skills, and before you know it, you've got something. You're running with it. Now, is it going to be a $50 million business immediately? Of course not. Most times it's not, but that's okay. You've taken steps and you continue to take small steps. No business, in as far as I've seen, anyways. I mean, the people always want to come up with little exceptions, but most businesses never just blow up overnight and have these insane 0 to 100 stories. Most businesses are a million small steps accrued over time. There are billion small steps accrued over time. There are hundreds and hundreds of hours put in every month and every year, and thousands of hours that add up and accrue to build something great. So start putting in the hours, start putting in the time, do whatever you can. If you cannot do X, Y, and Z, then I'm sure there's something that you can do. So do that and take those steps, push yourself forward, and before you know it, you're on a forward trajectory. You've got momentum, you've already got some things under your belt, and you're ready to launch and do more and go further.
And if I could just add something real quick.
Please.
Because we're now have all this found time for a lot of us, especially somebody that wants to start a business, there's so much learning material that exists on this digital space. And so we now have time that's very unique, in which we normally wouldn't, because we'd have to balance it with something else that maybe isn't in the way anymore. You can learn how to write a business plan on YouTube. You can learn how to edit a video. You can learn how to put a website together. You can learn all these things now, so that when the time comes for things to open up again, you're ready. And it's just back to
you might even be done. You might even be done. Exactly. Yeah. You might have your product lined up. You might have some prospects lined up. You might have some investors lined up. So and the other thing is, myself included, a lot of us actually have more time to entertain certain meetings that we wouldn't have before. Like right now, if someone wanted to get a meeting with me, it'd be a lot easier because I do have more time, because some of the things I was doing previously I can't do anymore. Whereas in my normal day-to-day life, my schedule was tighter, so it was harder to get a meeting. So if you want to reach out to some people that you might want to get advice from, or have mentors, or just talk to, reach out. This might be a great opportunity to be able to connect to some great people and then build a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you and I have talked about keeping these podcasts a little bit shorter, so that it's easier for people to watch,
more digestible.
So I think we can so we can end it there. I think we've made the points that we needed without becoming overly verbose.
Yep.
But hopefully, if anyone in the audience wants to talk to us about it, they're going to reach out, and we'd love to engage in some more conversations. And then if we might be able to do some follow-up episodes on this topic, or some of the particulars of it. Okay?
Okay.
So like you said last time, stay inside and be great.
Stay inside and be great.
All right, guys, take care.